Don't go in today. Shane Bennett grabbed my wrist with those shaky hands that had seen too much war and not enough peace. Trust me. I'm staring at this 72-year-old Korean War veteran who barely speaks beyond thanks and see you tomorrow, and he's giving me spy movie warnings at 7:45 a.m. outside our usual Austin cafe. Shane's been working the morning shift here for God knows how long, moving slow but steady, serving coffee to tech workers who treat him like furniture. Not me, though. Every morning for the past 8 years, I've left him a $10 tip. Nothing fancy, just respect between veterans. My name's Patrick Rodriguez. I'm 49 years old, former Army Corps of Engineers, and until this moment I thought I knew exactly how my Tuesday was going to go. Same routine I'd followed for 8 years at Apex Dynamics, our military robotics startup. Same burnt coffee, same gray Austin sky, same walk to the building where I'd spent the last chunk of my life designing tactical AI systems that could save soldiers' lives. But Shane's eyes were different this morning. Clear, alert, focused in a way I hadn't seen since he told me about Heartbreak Ridge over coffee last Veterans Day. This wasn't the tired old man who shuffled between tables. This was the Marine who'd held a position under fire for 3 days straight. "What do you know, Shane?" I asked quietly. He glanced around the empty cafe, then leaned closer. Last night after closing, they came in to discuss the transition. 3 of them. Your people. Thought I was just cleaning tables, invisible like always. They were planning something for this morning, something that involves your office. My stomach dropped. Who was it? The fancy one with the Tesla, the young woman who takes all those notes, and that kid with the BMW who always acts like he invented electricity. Shane's description was dead on. Lance Crawford, our VP who'd been dodging our meetings for weeks. Monica Davis, the junior developer who'd been shadowing me for 6 months. And Wade Thompson, my former intern who I'd trained from scratch. They kept saying streamlining and restructuring and laughing about how the old guard doesn't see it coming. Shane's voice carried the disgust of a man who'd seen real combat talking about corporate cowards. "I've watched you treat people with respect for 8 years, son. A man who tips an old veteran $10 every morning when he could get away with $1 deserves better than whatever they're planning." I stood there processing what he'd just told me. The pieces started falling into place like a tactical briefing. Lance's canceled one-on-ones, Monica's constant note-taking, Wade's sudden promotion to team lead last month, the patent renewal emails I'd been mysteriously left off of, the upcoming IPO roadshow where my 24 years of military robotics expertise would be front and center. They weren't just planning to fire me, they were planning to erase me. "Shane," I said, gripping his shoulder, "I need you to know that what you just told me might have saved my career. Hell, maybe my life." He nodded once, that efficient military acknowledgement that said everything without wasting words. "What are you going to do?" I looked across the street at the building where I'd poured my soul into creating technology that could protect American soldiers overseas, where I'd worked late nights and missed my kids' baseball games to perfect systems that could mean the difference between a mission success and a flag-draped coffin, where 3 people who'd never served a day in uniform were about to steal 24 years of my life's work. "I'm going to do what we learned in the Army," I said. "Gather intelligence first, then plan the mission." Shane smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from him in years. "Ura, soldier." "Hoo-ah," I corrected automatically, then caught myself grinning. Even in the middle of a crisis, old habits die hard. I walked back to my pickup truck instead of crossing the street to my office. Sat there in the driver's seat with the engine running, watching the building through morning drizzle that matched my mood. At 8:15, Lance's silver Tesla pulled into the executive lot like a shark circling wounded prey. Monica's little Honda followed, then Wade's BMW that cost more than my first year's salary out of the service. They walked into my building like they owned it. No hesitation, no looking back. They knew I wasn't coming because they'd made sure I wouldn't be there. I pulled out my phone and checked the company's security portal, using access I still had from our defense contractor integration project. The badge logs told the story. Lance Crawford, guest access granted. Monica Davis, active employee. Wade Thompson, active employee. No entry for Patrick Rodriguez, like I'd never existed. But here's what they didn't know about old soldiers. We don't panic, we adapt. And I'd learned more than just engineering in my 6 years serving overseas. I'd learned patience, strategy, and most importantly, How to think 3 moves ahead of the enemy. Time to show these corporate thieves what a real campaign looked like. I drove home, my mind already shifting into tactical mode. First rule of any operation: assess your assets and know your enemy's weaknesses. I had work to do. The laptop I kept in my kitchen drawer wasn't connected to the company network. Old habit from my army days. Always maintain independent communications. Good thing too, because what I was about to discover would have been impossible through official channels. I started with my personal email archive. 24 years of corporate paranoia had taught me to forward copies of everything important to my private account. Meeting notes, patent drafts, design specifications, even casual Slack conversations that seemed insignificant at the time. You learn to document everything when you've watched good soldiers get blamed for officers' mistakes. 6 weeks ago, I'd forwarded myself a copy of our preliminary IPO roadshow deck. Internal eyes only, marked confidential in red letters across every slide. I'd skimmed it back then, focusing on the technical sections where my work would be featured. Now I opened it with different eyes, looking for what I'd missed. Slide 12, technology pillars, clean corporate graphics, professional layout, impressive projections. Slide 13, key innovations, military-grade AI systems. Slide 14, tactical robotics portfolio, projected market value $300 million. There it was, my life's work, packaged in sleek presentations and executive-friendly bullet points. Every innovation listed there came from my designs. The adaptive targeting system I'd developed after talking to drone pilots about real battlefield conditions. The autonomous logistics framework that could save supply convoy lives. The tactical communication protocols that had taken me 3 years to perfect. But where my name should have been, I found generic corporate speak. Team-led advancements in next-generation defense technology. Not Patrick Rodriguez, the guy who'd bled weekends and missed his daughter's graduation to make these systems work. Just team-led. I clicked into the document properties. Last edited by Wade Thompson, drafted by Monica Davis, approved by Lance Crawford. The holy trinity of corporate theft, working together to erase me from my own creations. But corporate politics was just the surface. What I found next made it personal. I dug deeper into our legal archive using an old security credential I'd never reported. Sometimes what you don't fix saves your life later. I pulled up our patent filings from 2021, the backbone patents for our military robotics platform. 8 patent clusters that would form the foundation of our IPO valuation. Hidden in the legal language, buried under exhibits and addenda like a landmine waiting to explode, I found the clause that changed everything. Patent ownership may be reassigned following expiration of internal non-compete restrictions, provided proper notice is filed through appropriate holding entities within the prescribed time frame. I checked the dates with military precision. The restriction period had expired exactly 10 days ago. They'd planned this like a military operation, waiting until I couldn't legally claw back attribution, until I was just another ex-employee with no standing to challenge their theft. Except they'd made one critical tactical error. The clause didn't require company permission for reassignment. It just required the original inventor to file the transfer properly through a legal entity. And I hadn't done that yet, which meant the window was still open. For about 72 more hours, I leaned back in my kitchen chair, mind racing through possibilities. These weren't just patents, they were the core technology that made our entire company valuable. Without them, the IPO would collapse like a house of cards. The investors putting up $300 million were betting on technology they thought the company owned. They were wrong. My phone buzzed. Text message from my ex-wife, Sarah. Kids asking when you're picking them up this weekend. Tommy has a game Saturday. Right. Normal life, continuing while my professional world imploded. Tommy was 16 now, pitcher on the varsity team. Jessica was 14, honor roll student who wanted to study engineering like her old man. I'd missed too many games, too many school events, building the technology that was about to make other people rich. Time to make sure my kids' college funds weren't dependent on the generosity of corporate thieves. I scrolled through my contacts until I found Brenda Wilson. We'd served together in the 82nd Engineering Battalion, deployed to Afghanistan in 2003. She'd gotten out after one tour, used her GI Bill for law school, and now ran a corporate practice in Delaware. We'd stayed in touch over the years, mainly holiday cards and the occasional beer when she was in Austin for business. She answered on the second ring. Patrick, what's wrong? You sound different. I need to move fast on some patent transfers, Brenda. Legal, airtight, and completely confidential. How quickly can we establish a Delaware LLC with full IP holding capability? Long pause. In the background, I could hear courthouse noise. She was probably between clients. Patrick, that's not a casual question. You're talking about serious money and serious legal implications. What's going on? I gave her the condensed version. The upcoming IPO, the systematic erasure of my name from patents I'd developed, the discovery of the reassignment clause, and the 72-hour window to act. Another pause, longer this time. Then, those bastards. How much are we talking about in terms of valuation? 300 million, minimum. Maybe more if the military contracts come through. Jesus. Brenda's voice shifted into business mode. Okay, I can have a Delaware LLC registered and operational in 4 hours. Full corporate shield, IP holding structure, everything you need. But Patrick, once we do this, there's no going back. You'll own the patents outright, which means you can license them to whoever you want, or refuse to license them at all. I thought about Wade Thompson sitting in my office, probably going through my desk drawers. Monica Davis presenting my work to investors like she'd invented it herself. Lance Crawford calculating his stock options based on technology he'd stolen. Brenda, I said, set it up, and make it bulletproof. What do you want to call the LLC? I smiled for the first time since Shane's warning that morning. Apex Holdings. Got it. I'll send you the paperwork in an hour. Patrick? Yeah? I hope you destroy them. By midnight, Apex Holdings was officially registered in Delaware. Brenda had worked her legal magic, creating a corporate entity so clean and airtight it could survive an IRS audit and a Pentagon security clearance review. Every signature was time-stamped, every document filed with military precision. My intellectual property, 8 patent clusters that formed the backbone of a $300 million IPO, now legally belonged to a company that Lance Crawford had never heard of. But ownership was only the first phase of the operation. Phase 2 required strategic partnerships. At 3:30 a.m., I crafted an email that would change everything. The recipient was Colonel Miguel Santos at Blackwater Defense Solutions, our biggest competitor in the military robotics space. Santos and I had crossed paths during procurement meetings over the years. Professional respect between veterans, even when we were on opposite sides of the contract table. Subject line: Strategic Partnership Opportunity, Time Sensitive. The message was carefully worded, stripped of identifying metadata, professional but urgent. Colonel Santos, I'm reaching out regarding a potential IP licensing opportunity in tactical AI systems. Recent developments have made certain military-grade robotics patents available for exclusive licensing. Given Blackwater's expansion into autonomous defense systems, this could provide significant strategic advantage, available for discussion immediately. I attached a portfolio overview of my reassigned patents, technical specifications that would make any defense contractor salivate, and hit send at 3:47 a.m. My phone rang 23 minutes later. Rodriguez? Miguel Santos here. I've been watching your company's patent filings for 18 months. These are your designs, aren't they? The adaptive targeting framework? The logistics automation protocols? They are, I said simply. And as of yesterday, they're available for exclusive licensing through my holding company. Your holding company? I could hear the surprise in his voice. What happened to Apex Dynamics? Let's just say we had philosophical differences about attribution and compensation. I'm now in a position to offer these patents to someone who appreciates their value. Long pause. I could practically hear the gears turning. Rodriguez, if these patents are as comprehensive as they appear, we're talking about leapfrogging 5 years of R&D. What are your terms? Exclusive military applications license, $2 million signing bonus, equity participation, and complete confidentiality until we're ready to announce. Can you move that fast? For technology that could dominate the next generation of defense contracts? I can have legal docs drafted in 2 hours. Good. Because my former colleagues are presenting their innovations to investors this afternoon, and they're about to discover they don't own what they think they own. We scheduled a signing meeting for 7 a.m. at Blackwater's Austin office. I hung up and allowed myself a moment of satisfaction. In 18 hours, I'd gone from corporate casualty to strategic asset, but the best part was still coming. The sun was coming up when I received 2 more calls that changed the trajectory completely. The first was from General Patricia Morrison, Pentagon Liaison for Emerging Technologies. Word travels fast in military circles, especially when it involves game-changing IP suddenly becoming available. Patrick, I understand congratulations are in order. Colonel Santos mentioned you've retained control of some interesting innovations. Yes, ma'am. Circumstances changed rapidly. I imagine they did. Listen, off the record, there's been concern at the Pentagon about Apex Dynamics' reliability as a long-term partner. Too much venture capital influence, too many civilian executives making promises about military applications they don't understand. Your reputation, on the other hand, speaks for itself. She paused, letting that sink in. If you're taking meetings this week, we should talk. The second call was from Dr. James Wilson at MIT's robotics lab. Academic connections matter in our industry, and apparently my patent portfolio had generated discussion in circles far beyond corporate boardrooms. Patrick, I've been following the technical papers that emerged from your work. Brilliant stuff. I understand there might be opportunities for research collaboration. By 6:30 a.m., I was sitting in Blackwater's conference room, signing documents that guaranteed my financial security for the next decade. $2 million signing bonus, 15% equity in any products developed using my patents, and exclusive licensing terms that meant every military robotics contract in the next 5 years would generate revenue for Apex Holdings. Colonel Santos shook my hand across the mahogany table. Patrick, you just gave us a 5-year head start on every competitor in the defense sector. Whatever happened between you and your former company, I'm grateful. Sometimes the best business decisions come from personal betrayals, I said. At exactly 9:15 a.m., while I was driving home from the most profitable meeting of my life, my phone lit up with missed calls. Lance Crawford, Monica Davis, Wade Thompson. Even HR was trying to reach me. I let them ring. The company-wide email arrived at 10:30 a.m. Due to unforeseen legal complications regarding intellectual property ownership, our IPO launch has been postponed pending resolution. All investor meetings scheduled for this week are canceled. We appreciate your patience during this challenging time. Unforeseen. That was one word for it. Lance Crawford called me directly at 11:15 a.m. I could hear the panic in his voice before he even spoke. Patrick, we need to talk immediately. There's been some kind of mistake with the patent filings. Legal is saying the core IP isn't owned by the company anymore. Something about a transfer to an entity called Apex Holdings. Do you know anything about this? I was sitting on my back porch, drinking real coffee for the first time in months, watching my neighbors' kids play in their yard. Kids who would grow up in a world where my technology might keep their older brothers and sisters safer if they chose military service. Lance, I said calmly, you should have your legal team contact Apex Holdings directly for licensing discussions. I'm sure they'll be very reasonable. Patrick, what the hell does that mean? Who is Apex Holdings? I smiled, taking another sip of coffee. That's me, Lance. I am Apex Holdings. Silence stretched across the phone line like a broken bridge. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, what do you want? Nothing you can give me anymore, I said, and hung up the phone. 3 weeks later, I stood on the main stage at the Defense Technology Summit in San Antonio. Not as an employee of the company that tried to erase me, but as the founder of Apex Holdings and senior strategic partner to Blackwater Defense Solutions. The auditorium was packed with military contractors, Pentagon officials, and defense industry journalists who'd heard rumors about the Apex Dynamics situation. Behind me, a massive LED screen displayed my patent portfolio in all its glory. Every innovation properly attributed, every design correctly credited, every breakthrough carrying my name where it belonged. The presentation was simple, professional, and devastating. I didn't need corporate buzzwords or flashy animations. I just looked out at an audience of people who understood the value of earned respect and said, real innovation has fingerprints. Mine are protected. The applause wasn't polite corporate clapping. It was the recognition that comes when military professionals see justice served and competence rewarded. In the front row, Colonel Santos nodded approvingly. General Morrison gave me a subtle thumbs up. And there, in the back of the auditorium, I spotted a familiar figure. Shane Bennett had driven down from Austin in his old pickup truck, still wearing his cafe uniform under a worn denim jacket. He'd probably never been to a defense industry conference in his life, but he'd come to see how the story ended. When our eyes met, he raised his coffee cup in a small salute, one veteran acknowledging another's victory. After the presentation, the networking reception buzzed with conversations about licensing opportunities, joint ventures, and strategic partnerships. I found myself surrounded by executives who 6 months ago would have considered me just another corporate engineer. Now I was the guy who controlled patents worth hundreds of millions. But the most satisfying moment came when I saw Wade Thompson across the room. He looked different, smaller somehow. The BMW was gone. I'd heard through industry contacts that he was driving a used Honda now. The cocky confidence had been replaced by the desperate energy of someone frantically networking to find his next opportunity. When he spotted me, his face went pale. I walked over, drink in hand, completely relaxed. "Wade," I said with a friendly nod. "How's the job search going?" He stammered something about new opportunities and exploring options. What he didn't say was that no major defense contractor would touch him after word spread about the patent theft attempt. The military community is smaller than people think, and reputation matters more than resume. "Listen, Patrick," he finally managed, "about what happened with the company. I want you to know that wasn't personal. It was just business." I studied his face for a moment. This kid I'd mentored, whose code reviews I'd spent hours improving, whose career I'd helped launch by putting his name on projects he'd barely contributed to, he genuinely didn't understand what he'd done wrong. "Wade," I said quietly, "the day you decided to steal 24 years of my work and present it as your own, you made it personal. The fact that you can't see the difference tells me everything I need to know about your character." I started to walk away, then turned back. "By the way, Monica's working at a call center in Phoenix now. Lance is selling insurance in Dallas. Maybe you can team up again, build something new together. Just make sure you actually create it this time." The drive back to Austin was peaceful. I'd bought a house on Lake Travis, nothing fancy but comfortable, with a workshop where I could tinker with new designs and a dock where I could fish when I needed to think. The licensing fees from my patents provided enough passive income to live comfortably while pursuing projects that interested me rather than chasing corporate promotions. The next morning, I drove to the old cafe. Shane was there, moving a little slower these days, but still serving coffee with quiet dignity. I'd set up a trust fund that would cover his expenses for life, though he only knew about the monthly checks, not the source. "Morning, Shane," I said, sliding a $20 across the counter. He poured my coffee and gave me that familiar nod. "Saw you on the news yesterday. That technology conference." "Yeah? What did you think?" "Looked like you were exactly where you belonged," he said simply. We stood there for a moment, two old soldiers who'd both fought different kinds of wars and lived to tell about it. Then Shane reached under the counter and pulled out a newspaper clipping. "Saved this for you," he said, handing me an article from the Austin Business Journal. The headline read, "Apex Dynamics acquired by venture capital firm for parts. Former employees scattered." I scanned the article. The company had been sold off in pieces after the IPO collapse. The office building was empty. Lance Crawford was quoted saying he was exploring new opportunities in the insurance sector. The whole enterprise had imploded in less than a month once investors realized they were buying technology they couldn't legally use. "Justice," Shane said, refilling his coffee pot, "doesn't always come fast, but it comes." I folded the clipping and put it in my wallet, not because I wanted to gloat, but because I wanted to remember the lesson. In corporate America, loyalty and hard work don't always get rewarded. But patience, strategic thinking, and the ability to recognize opportunity when it knocks, those skills matter more than any MBA program teaches. That evening, I picked up my kids for our weekend together. Tommy had pitched a no-hitter the day before, and Jessica had been accepted into an advanced engineering program at UT. We went to dinner at their favorite restaurant, and for the first time in months, I wasn't thinking about patents or licensing fees or corporate betrayal. I was thinking about how sometimes the best revenge isn't dramatic or loud. Sometimes it's just building something better than what they tried to steal and making sure your name is on it where it belongs. The patent licensing checks still come every month. Blackwater's stock price keeps climbing. And every morning, I still stop by that little cafe to buy coffee from an old veteran who taught me the most important lesson of all. Pay attention to who warns you when trouble's coming, and always remember where your real loyalty belongs. Not to companies that see you as replaceable, but to people who see you as human.